If passive income were really as easy as the internet makes it sound, you wouldn't need to be watching this video. Most men don't look into passive income because they're lazy. They look into it because there's a quiet, uncomfortable pressure in the back of their mind. You have a job, a stable income. Your bills get paid every month. But you also know one hard truth. If you lost your job tomorrow, for most people, everything starts to unravel within 3 to 6 months. In the United States, over 60% of working adults lack sufficient funds to sustain themselves for 3 months without a paycheck. Even among people earning over $100,000 a year, many are still living paycheck to paycheck. Then you hear the familiar promises, make money while you sleep. Just get to $1 million and you're set. Invest once and you're done. It sounds appealing, not because you're greedy, but because you're tired. Tired of trading time for money. Tired of knowing that one layoff, one health issue, or one bad market year could undo everything you've built. Here's the real problem. Most passive income plans aren't completely wrong, they're just missing half the truth. In this video, I'll show you the real numbers, the real traps, and why so many people with over $1 million are still afraid to spend their money. If you find this kind of honest breakdown worth thinking about, subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. And I want to ask you one simple question. Do you think passive income truly creates freedom, or is it just a very well-marketed illusion? Leave a comment below. I read every one. Passive income does not mean doing nothing. There's a very common misunderstanding that Mike himself believed for years, that passive income means quitting your job and never having to work again. The idea sounds reasonable. If money flows into your account every month on its own, why would you need to keep working? But reality is very different. After speaking with many people who've reached what's often called financial freedom, Mike realized something important. Passive income isn't an on-off switch. It's a spectrum. At one end of that spectrum is fully active income. You stop working, the money stops. At the other end is nearly passive income. Assets generate money without requiring your daily involvement. The problem is, almost no one lives entirely at either extreme. Mike has never met anyone who could live off their assets without monitoring their portfolio, making periodic decisions, or dealing with unexpected risks. What the internet calls passive income usually falls into 3 categories. The first is cash flow, rent, dividends, bond interest. It feels safe because money comes in regularly, but it's rarely as hands-off as advertised. The second is total return. You invest in stocks or index funds, then sell small portions of your portfolio each year to cover expenses. In this model, you're not living off income. You're living off a withdrawal strategy. The third is semi-passive income. You still work, but fewer hours, more choice in what you do, and no pressure to work just to survive. Here's the point Mike wants to make very clear. Passive income does not mean doing nothing. It means not depending on your next hour of work to stay alive. Many people feel disappointed because they enter this game with the wrong expectations. They think buying a few assets is enough. But anyone promising you 100% passive is selling one of 3 things: leverage, risk, or a course. A more realistic and safer goal is to build a system where your money doesn't come from a single source, your time is no longer undervalued. And if one income stream breaks, you still have options. That is what Mike calls real freedom. The real math behind passive income. Once you understand that passive income doesn't mean doing nothing, the next question Mike always asks is, how much money do you actually need to live without a paycheck? The internet usually answers very quickly, the 4% rule. It sounds simple. You take your annual spending, divide it by 4%, and that's your number. But here's the problem. Real life isn't a spreadsheet formula. The 4% rule was built using historical US market data from a very favorable period. High bond yields, low stock valuations, and a younger population. Today, the picture looks very different. More recent research suggests that a more realistic safe withdrawal rate is closer to 3% to 3.5%, especially for people retiring early who may need their portfolio to last 40 to 50 years, not just 30. Mike gives a very practical example. Suppose you live in the US and spend about $60,000 per year. Using the 4% rule, you'd need $1.5 million invested. But at a 3.5% withdrawal rate, that number rises to nearly $1.7 million. That $200,000 difference isn't a rounding error. It represents years of additional saving or years of extra work that almost no one warns you about. And that's only the first layer. The second factor most passive income plans quietly avoid is inflation. At an average inflation rate of around 3% per year, the $60,000 lifestyle you have today will require almost $110,000 in 20 years just to buy the same things. If your passive income doesn't grow over time, you're effectively giving yourself a pay cut, slowly, quietly, and often without noticing. Mike has seen many people feel fine for the first 5 years, then start tightening their spending around year 10, and by year 15 realize something uncomfortable. They aren't poor, but they aren't free anymore either. The key point Mike wants you to understand is this: passive income is not a fixed number. It's a moving equation. You don't just need enough money to survive today. You need the ability to adjust when markets change, withstand bad years, and adapt when life doesn't go according to plan. If you ignore these numbers, passive income can look great on paper, but in real life, it will keep you in a constant state of anxiety. And when money makes you anxious, it stops giving you freedom. The biggest trap: cash flow that feels safe. Once people understand the math behind passive income, many of them reach the same conclusion. I don't want to sell assets, I just want steady cash flow. That sounds reasonable. And precisely because it sounds reasonable, it becomes the most dangerous trap. Cash flow gives you a sense of safety. Money comes in every month. The numbers feel predictable. You don't have to watch the market every day, but Mike has seen far too many people confuse revenue with real income. Take real estate. You do a very popular choice among American men. You buy a duplex and rent it out for $12,500 a month. That sounds like passive income, right? In reality, it's not that simple. You still have to subtract property taxes, insurance, maintenance costs, vacancy periods, and large irregular expenses like roofs, HVAC systems, and plumbing. After all of that, the $2,500 can easily turn into $800 to $1,000 in net income before income taxes. To replace $60,000 a year in living expenses, you might need 6 to 8 fully paid-off properties, or even more if market conditions aren't favorable. And at that point, you need to be honest with yourself. You're no longer a passive investor. You're a property manager. You handle phone calls, you handle risk. You handle problems, and even while you're on vacation. The IRS might classify it as passive income. Your calendar won't. The psychological trap here is this: cash flow makes you feel in control, but in reality, it often locks you in. Your assets are hard to sell when you need liquidity. You're tied to local market conditions. And if expenses rise faster than rents, that stable cash flow can quietly turn negative without you noticing right away. Mike isn't saying cash flow is bad. It's just not the only answer. Many people chase cash flow because they're afraid of selling assets, but ironically, they end up trading away flexibility, the most valuable part of financial freedom. Passive income isn't about money showing up every month. It's about being able to survive when things don't go according to plan. And if an income stream requires you to be present for it to keep working, then sooner or later, it will control your time. Spending, the strongest lever of financial freedom. If Mike had to point to one single factor that determines whether you can live off passive income, it wouldn't be investment returns. And it wouldn't be whether you choose stocks or real estate, it would be spending. Most people pour almost all of their energy into earning more money, chasing raises, building side hustles, trying to invest for higher returns, but very few people look at spending from the right angle. Mike looks at it using a very simple formula. Your freedom number is simple. Take what you spend each year and multiply it by 25 to 30. What does that mean? For every $1 you spend per year, you need $25 to $30 in invested capital to support it indefinitely. That sounds abstract, so Mike uses very real examples. A $500 monthly car payment is $6,000 per year. To support that single expense with passive income, you need roughly $150,000 in invested assets. Not to buy the car, just to keep that car in your life. A bundle of subscriptions totaling $100 per month is netting $200 per year. That translates to roughly $30,000 to $35,000 of capital permanently tied up. When you look at spending this way, a lot of decisions start to feel very different. The real question isn't whether you can afford something today. It's whether you're willing to commit 25 to 30 times that cost in assets to support it for the rest of your life. Mike came to an uncomfortable but very real realization. Cutting spending is far more powerful than increasing income. A 10% raise usually just makes life slightly more comfortable, but a 10% reduction in spending can remove hundreds of thousands of dollars from your freedom number. There's another benefit people rarely talk about. Lower spending reduces psychological pressure. When your lifestyle costs less than your potential passive income, you don't need perfect returns. You don't need the market to cooperate, and you don't need to panic sell assets. Lower spending isn't about deprivation. It's about buying yourself margin of safety. And in the game of passive income, margin of safety matters more than any promise of returns. There's one risk that, if you ignore it, you can do everything right and still go broke very quickly. Mike calls it sequence of returns risk. It sounds academic, but the idea itself is very simple. It's not just about how much you earn on average. It's about when the bad years show up. Mike uses a very realistic scenario. Let's say you quit your job with $1.2 million. You plan to withdraw $60,000 a year to live on. In your first year of retirement, the market drops 20%. Your portfolio fell from $1.2 million to $960,000. You still have to withdraw money to live. Now you're down to $900,000. In year 2, the market drops another 10%. Your portfolio shrinks to around $810,000. You withdraw again, and now you're left with less than $750,000. In just 2 years, you've lost nearly 40% of your assets, even though you weren't spending recklessly. The biggest problem isn't just the money, it's the psychology. Mike has seen many people start to panic, cut spending out of fear, or go back to work not because they want to, but because they feel forced. That isn't freedom. That's survival mode. And here's the key point. This risk cannot be solved by higher returns. Mike's solution is boring, but extremely effective. A cash buffer. Hold 12 to 24 months of living expenses in cash or very low-risk assets. Not to earn returns, just to buy yourself time. When the market crashes, you live off cash, you don't sell assets at the bottom, and you stay calm. Mike always says, cash isn't an investment. It's insurance for your freedom. Without a buffer, passive income turns you into the most vulnerable person during bad markets. With a buffer, you're the one with options. Before we wrap up, Mike wants to be very clear about one thing. Passive income isn't a fantasy, but it's not magic either. It's a series of correct decisions repeated long enough so you're no longer forced to work out of fear. If you appreciate talking about money in a way that's honest, data-driven, and free of empty promises, subscribe to the channel. The next videos will continue breaking down money in the most practical way possible so you can make better decisions, not pressured ones. And before you leave, Mike wants to ask you one question. Do you think passive income truly creates freedom? Or is it just another way to escape a job you no longer enjoy? Leave a comment below. Mike reads everyone, and there's a good chance the next video will start with your answer.